Hi, I will be finishing off Roman Diary, the Journal of Iliona, a Young Slave, by Richard Platt, illustrated by David Parkins. And this is for educational purposes because we were reading this before lockdown, and Mr. Livermore and I thought it'd be really lovely for us to finish it so that you can find out what happened to Iliona. Now, when we left off, she was just about to go and see the gladiator fight. Now, some of the easy Roman numerals I will read, but the more tricky ones are behind me, and I will point to the day so you can work out what day it is that she is doing her journal entry. So, day 2 of the month of September. I do not know how I should write about what I have seen today. We went to the Munera, the games at the amphitheatre, except they were not like games I have ever played. They were real battles between two slaves called gladiators who fight with razor-sharp weapons. Now I wonder if you can think about the word amphitheatre and if you can hear any words within it that help us to work out what an amphitheatre might be. Today's games were the gift of the emperor to the people as part of the celebration of the Dacian triumph. The gladiators fight in a big open oval of sand in the middle. All around rise thousands of seats. To sit in one, you must have a wooden token. My mistress gave one each to Cytheris and me as a treat. Come and sit with me. We'll be right at the top. She wasn't joking. Women and slaves sit on the highest tier, and low seats are reserved for the most important Romans, with senators, such as my master, at the very front. I wonder if you can figure out why this is the case. Why were the women and slaves right at the top, and why were the important Romans down the front? At first, I was disappointed to be so far away, but when the spectacle began, I was glad. We could not smell the blood nor see the fear on the faces of the defeated gladiators. The first match was between a net man and a pursuer. Though the pursuer fought bravely, he soon grew exhausted. When at last he stumbled, the net man stood with his trident, touching the pursuer's chest, and turned to the emperor's box for a signal. I looked away, but my mistress pulled at my arm, saying, Iliona, don't worry. The pursuer fought well. The emperor will listen to the crowd. Looking up, I saw the emperor spare the defeated man and reward the winner with a wooden sword that meant he had won his freedom. And there they are. Gladiators fighting. During the next fight, I watched everything, and by the third, I was actually enjoying it. The roar of the crowd ringing in my ears swept me along as a strong wind blows down the road. But when the show ended, I felt ashamed. Why do you think she felt ashamed? As we queued to get out, we met my master who had a surprise for us. He led us away from the crowd down into a basement below the arena. Here we saw ferocious lions, tigers and leopards pacing in their cages. They will fight in the ring tomorrow afternoon. The trainer of beasts told us that animals are usually terrified of the gladiators who challenge them. So despite the excitement of the spectacle, I went home with a sad heart. I wonder if Iliona was to go and see another gladiator fight, whether you think she'd have the same emotions at the beginning, so before she watched it, during, and then after. The next day is this day, I don't know if you can see that, day of the month of September. Today we accompanied my master on a visit to the site of some new baths. People say they will be finer than Nero's, and the biggest that Rome has ever seen. My master is one of the senators who encouraged the emperor to build these baths, in spite of the great cost of their construction. We left at an early hour, before the sun got too hot. Several of the house slaves carried my master and mistress in chairs. Cytheris and I followed behind, talking. The baths stand just up the hill from the amphitheatre, and it is easy to see them from wherever you are in the city. It's easy to see them from wherever you are in the city. Are they big or are they small? As we arrived, an important-looking man asked me in Greek, "Would you like to climb to the top?" He must have heard my accent. Of course, I replied, "Yes," in Greek, and he called over a mason who led me to a huge basket. As soon as I stepped into it, the mason jumped in after me and waved his arms. Wonder if you can find out what or who a mason was. At this signal, two men began to walk inside a great wheel high above. Setting it turning, to my great alarm, This made the basket rise into the air. This must be an old or a new technique, using two people inside a wheel, turning it by moving themselves to get the basket to rise. And to my great alarm, how is she feeling? If she said, to my great alarm. Higher and higher it climbed until I could see every part of the baths, and I was astonished to learn that the walls are but a trick. From the outside they look like solid marble, but in fact they are not at all. The mason showed me how the builders mix lime with water and a kind of dust called pozzolana, so that it turns into a dark grey mess which they pour between moulds made of wooden planks. Within days, the mess turns hard so that it stands up on its own, without the wooden moulds. Then the mason covers it in thin slabs of stone, though they look like solid blocks. When I got back down to the steady ground, I could not find the Greek man to thank. On the way home, my mistress told me he is not Greek at all, but Syrian. That was the only Apollodorus, the emperor's architect. Show you that photo there. Not sure. Yeah, that leads to the next journal entry, which I will read in the next video.